Cool. It's Mike Muir from Suicidal Tendencies and Infectious Grooves, and Psycho Michael. And the Suicidal's coming out to Australia with a band called Metallica. Good friends of ours. The bass player used to play in Suicidal. The bass player's son is playing in Suicidal Tendencies, along with Ben Weinman, who's in a Dillinger Escape Plan that they just played out in Australia. And you got on drums uh, Jay Weinberg, who was in formerly Slipknot, and Dean Pleasant's been a long time Suicidal player, and myself.
Jeez, that's almost a super group, mate.
Well, there's super good people, and that's the most important thing. It's everybody has background, which is great. Um, but I was talking with Ben a little bit ago about he was always been pushing to do a new record, and one of the things that he said, he goes, when I was 12 or 13 and I was skating and I first heard Suicidal, he goes, it moved me, on the skateboard, but also mentally made me, stop and think compared to other music. And he's like, I want to do a record, a Suicidal record that's like that for, people, the next generation of people and stuff. And I think that's really cool. He has the background and what Suicidal meant to him, and to be able to try to carry that on. You have Tye, who, as I said, is Robert's son, who just turned 21, and he's been playing with us for like 6 years. And to grow up in a neighborhood where there's a lot of pride in the band, and he's obviously was little and going to shows when his dad was still in before his dad was in the band, and then went on to play with Ozzy and obviously Metallica, and to be share the same stage with his dad, it's a great thing. And we just did a couple of Infectious Groove shows, and Tye and Robert both got up there and did a little bass duels and stuff, and it was really, really great time, and a great thing to experience. And as family, to be able to sit there and appreciate that, that's a great thing. And then everybody has their backgrounds, the things that they've done, but everybody has their association with Suicidal, and they want to do their part, add their thing to Suicidal to make it even more special. And so we have a similar likeness in that sense.
Yeah. And that's fantastic though, bro. Like for you to sit there and say all of that about something you created 50 years ago and it's still affecting people to this day. That's got to be you that's got to make you feel good, bro.
Well, it's great because even like when we go to Australia and stuff, there's so many people. I lived out there for a bit, and there's so many people that I met over the years, from when we first went there in '93 when we were opening up for Alice Change and knowing who we were, to '99 when we did the Warp Tour, and on, where you meet people, and then they start to have kids, and you see their little kid, and you got pictures of them with a little kid, and you come back and now they're 6'4", and you're looking up to them, and you're like, I'm glad I'm glad I was nice to them, and they like me. And but you see that generational thing, and how quickly time does fly, but how much it means to people. And when we were just in Australia 2 years ago with Suicidal, so many of the people, when I talked to them, they were with the group, and a lot of them said, I haven't seen this guy in 10 years or blah 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 years or 20 years. And we saw that you were coming, and I was like, I'm gonna get in touch with them, you know.
Oh
And so
wow.
that, I was like, that was so many different cities and places, people seeing that, and in the same group when you're there, and they're like, this too, that was like, I felt that was really a cool thing. And so that's beyond music, and so really appreciate that. And like I mentioned, you obviously, I was there the last time Metallica played, and I love a lot of things about Australia. Love a lot of Australians, but the one thing maybe I don't like, or I could do a little less with, is the lack of filter and the ability the ability to ask for things that no one in their right mind would, and try to put it in a way like it's no problem. mate, you gotta talk to Robbie and give me 8 backstage passes and snake pits and this and that. Miss is gonna go and bring her cousins. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, like it's a done deal. Ah, no, he's not gonna mind, mate. It's all good. And you're like, no, no, no. I'm not getting you and your closest 7 friends and your next door neighbors and their cousins. I can't do that. And if I called Robert and asked him, he'd be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I was like, he's like, "You been hanging out with Australians?" Yeah, yeah. But so it's like, oh, it can't hurt to ask. And I'm like, yeah, no, it could hurt actually. But that's the one side. And so with the Metallica tickets, and we just did, like I said, in the States, and they're doing 2 shows in arenas, and I mean in the football stadiums, and they could have easily done that here. So it's like, man, getting hit up for tickets is that's the only thing that takes away from the fun. But that being said, when I was there, before I went on the whole tangent, when they played the last time that they played there, and I was going, oh man, that would be amazing to play with Metallica in Australia. And I remember, that thinking that. And so doing that is one of those ones. It's like it's great to be able to something happen that you actually really, 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 really appreciate. And I try to appreciate things in general, but so that's very exciting. Then in the same sense, it's different when we do our own shows, and I love that aspect. And so it's great to be able to do that. And then staying a little extra and doing 2 Psycho shows at the end in the Gold Coast on the Sunshine Coast, and going to be able to, I got a record coming out next year, and to be able to play like new songs that aren't on a record, um, and no one's heard, is kind of exciting and fun, and that's the way everybody started. So to be able to do that again, and the only other time that we did that is when we did the Warped Tour '99. It was before the Freedom record came out, and we were playing a bunch of those songs live. And that was like really fun. It was like reminding me, like I said, when you first start off, you're playing songs people don't know, and they have to listen to it, and you got to win them over, you know, live. And I think that's a lot of what music is. So I love that part. There's a lot of parts, but I really love that part.
Yeah, wicked. And then, so is this going to be your first time playing with Metallica when you do it in Australia, or have you played overseas with them?
No, we did the tours in the state this year,
Yeah.
so we did quite a few dates with them, and fortunately they're not bringing that stage. It's great from a fan point, but from someone that moves like me, up and down steps, dodging drum risers, it's too much for my mind, and try to have to be focused and thinking and not tripping and falling in front of you. The last thing you want to do is fall in front of 60,000 people. So you know a more traditional stage, I'm actually very excited about.
Yeah. And of course, Evanescence are coming over too. Like you look at it on paper at first, and it seems like an unlikely threesome with Evanescence there. But the more you think about it, it's actually going to add a different dimension to the show, I reckon.
Oh, I think everything does. Originally, I had heard it was going to be Limp Bizkit, and they did some of they didn't play because like I said, they did 2 dates, and the ones they did the second date with, that's the one Limp Bizkit did, and it's kind of cool to see the whole resurgence that they got going on, and getting a really good reaction. And personally, I really like those guys. They've always been very nice to me and very friendly, and I appreciate that. I don't know them from way back, and maybe it was different, but all my experiences have been really stand up people, and they probably learned a lot. When you go up that quick, that
Yeah,
fast,
you have to.
that's not easy, and when you go back down that fast, and then to make a great recovery. And I know that it's funny because when they was it Good Things, I think they did in Australia last year. Was it last year or the year before? Anyhow, a lot of my friends, a lot of people I know, they were like going, actually, man, Limp Bizkit was really good. I was like surprised and stuff. And I was like, I kind of like, I laugh at that and stuff. And I go, it's like there's certain things you're not supposed to, and you test the water to see the reaction. I go, no, dude, they're cool. They go, oh, are they cool? I was like, yeah, yeah, okay, good, 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 good. So
You mentioned it's your first time here in 2 years, and you touched on it a bit before, but what's changed with Suicidal Tendencies since you realised?
Um, well, we went last year and with infectious, and the joke is, before we get there, we'll already have our next trip planned out. Love being there. I'm gonna go there way early in October and stay in during December. And as a lot of people know, I was the permanent used to be a permanent resident. I've lived there in a couple of different places, and my three boys were born there. And so I love it. It's a not easy place to commute from. So, and it makes things very difficult, and having family here and everything going on here, it's not possible. But I really enjoy being there, and consequently, that's why I also want to do the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, because I used to live on the Sunshine Coast. My wife's got family on the Gold Coast, and a lot of people that I met, from going way back, from my brother being a pro skateboarder and surfing, people coming from Australia to the States and meeting them, and Burley Head and all of those places. So it's really exciting for me, and like to just get into the off the plane, land, get to the Gold Coast, and jump in the ocean.
Yeah, nothing better, is it? Nothing better.
No, no, nah. It's funny because I was in Burley Heads, went there 20 something years ago, and we were going there and meeting up with some of my brother, some of his friends. And I was like, oh man, it's cool. They got these little surf towns and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just crossing the street. And I was out there, when was the last time? A few months back. And I was like waiting to cross the street, all this traffic's going, and this and that. I was like, wait a second, this was the exact spot in Burley Heads that had no traffic that I thought, and now I'm looking and seeing all these skyscrapers and all these, huge apartments that are, 20 feet, 20 stories high and all that. And I was like, wow, it's changed. But
Yeah,
still gotta love it.
still got a bit of character about it, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it reminds me in the sense of, like, a lot of people talk about Venice and it's like, it's changed and blah, blah, blah. And you could tell the difference between the people, or they sometimes try to magnify, I've been here for a long time, and that. But it's cool. I enjoy it. And for the most part, I don't really have any problems anywhere. And I don't look for problems. And I'm very fortunate that know people from a lot of places, and they um, welcome me and stuff, and let me see other parts than just the tourist trap, so to speak. And so that's probably the best thing, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I think probably the biggest thing that's changed with the band since you were here last too is Jay Weinberg wasn't drumming for you last time you were out here, mate. So how does having someone like him change your live show, I guess?
Well, Jay's an amazing drummer, and he's a really smart drummer. And when you're playing in a big old, like I said, big old football stadium, and the stage is like totally separated, and you don't have monitors, it could be very difficult. But he does drive the bus, and he knows how to drive it as a sports car, and he knows how to drive it, to keep everybody together and to make it exciting. And but keep it all good and fun. So he's probably the best person I can think of to play drums in this environment. So I feel very fortunate to be playing with him.
Yeah. And you're also coming armed with your first new music in 7 years too, bro, with the song Adrenaline Addict. Adrenaline Addict. So tell us about that one.
Well, like everything suicidal, when we first was working on the song, it was actually me and Josh Paul, which is the old bass player, Suicidal, for a different thing that we were doing and writing a bunch of songs, and with Nisha. And as I was playing it to people, people were like, "Oh fuck, dude, that's new Suicidal." I said, "No, it's not Suicidal." And every time I heard, "Is that new Suicidal?" "Oh, that's cool." Blah, blah, blah. And they like felt people played it and they listened to the lyrics. Dude, that sounds so suicidal, and like, so we're like, okay, let's actually, try to do the transition into Suicidal, and then I tried to sing the parts Nisha did, and it just didn't work, and there's lyrically and that, and but I listen to it. It's like, to me, that is kind of very suicidal, adrenaline addict. It's like, when I used to, skate or whatever, anything before I did it was, a little scared. I listen to music, and there'd always be a certain track that, like, okay, let's go, where music used to be, they had expression, used to be the soundtrack of life rather than the background noise, you know? And so we wanted to do a song like that had that straight ahead energy, that if you were at the top of the hill back in the day and you were scared of, or, big wave surfing or whatever you were going to do, you listen to and just, like, power through. And then it also is very suicidal in the sense of, if do you have something to say? And a lot of times what you have to say, there's expression, anything good to say, don't say it at all. But there's also a lot of things you're going to say people aren't going to want to hear. But that doesn't necessarily mean shouldn't be said. And, I have a way of saying things that mean something to me in the suicidal way. And, it starts off and says, life isn't fair. No one said it would be, and it has those different callback things that basically, it leaves it up to you. At the end of the day, we can have the worst luck, we can have all kinds of terrible things, we can happen, this and that, but ultimately at the end of the day, you know you're going to have to decide what you accept, what you tolerate, and what you're willing to fight for, and how you're going to live your life. And we're all quote unquote alive, but we're not all living. And I think that sometimes we find things to kind of substitute and pad us per se, so that we don't have to live. And then we find things to keep us distracted, so that people won't question the way that we live. And I think a lot of times when people talk about other people questioning them, I go, I don't think you're really worried about other people questioning, because you don't give a fuck what they think. I think you don't want I think you don't want them to question, because you actually do give a fuck about yourself. And it's easier to say that you don't care about them, you know, but I don't think you're necessarily happy, you know, and you don't want to question yourself. And we all need to question ourselves more often than we'd like to. And it's usually a very painful conversation and very uncomfortable. But if you don't have to have it, great. I feel good for you. But, that fake smile only gets you so far.
Yeah, damn straight. And your voice and Nisha's together too, bro. Like when I first listened to that song, it sort of at first it was like a bit, oh, what's going on here? But as the song goes on, you guys vocalize really well together.
It's funny because the thing that we're doing is called Psychostar, and some of it, it's like I go, I'm singing on there, and there are people like, no, 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 and I'm like, I'm on there too, and they're like, no, 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 that's just, I only hear the chick, and I'm like, well, thank you for putting it that way, but I'm I'm on there too, and they have to go in the tracks and be like, oh yeah, you are there and stuff. I'm like, it's like, okay, thank you. Thank you
Thanks a
for
lot.
that compliment. They're like, well, it sounds good. It sounds good. And I'm like, okay, you're saying I sound good as a chick. But yeah, in Adrenaline Addict, there's definitely the contrast. And I think that's, the good and bad is in, and, you can't always decipher what it is. After the fact, it's a lot easier to, and so many times, even with people, so many times people, oh, they're so nice, they're so great. I'm like, why? Because they smiled and they
Yeah.
told you everything they could thought you'd want to hear, you know, and just, oh yeah, yeah, and agreed with everything. That makes them a great person. Nah, they're just sucking you in. They're
Exactly.
sucking you in, sizing you up for the kill. You know, there's no sincerity there whatsoever. You know, so anyhow, yeah, it's kind of funny and it's cool, and it's also exciting to do something different, to be able to do things that are different, and to have the Psycho Michael record coming out, and be signed with BMG, and it's coming out at the beginning of next year, and it's going to have like some new Suicidal, new Infectious grooves, all different stuff that unreleased or new stuff that I never put out. It's kind of a new Psycho Star song, to introduce that, and so it's kind of like all over the place, and that's kind of like my life, and my musical preferences.
You wouldn't have it any other way, would you, brother?
No, no, not at all, and I don't try to be chaotic. And I found a lot of times that what people describe as chaotic, I find it very comfortable, and it's very logical. And I find that when people don't agree, and when they eventually sometimes they do agree, it scares them. They go, that actually makes sense to me now. I'm scared. But yeah, I think all see things in our own different way, and sometimes we squint our eyes to see what we want to see. And I've never been an eye squinter. I have bad eyesight to begin with, so I always try to see the way things are, and work to get them the way that I want to be. But before I try to change something, make sure I know what I want and why I want it, and that it is important, and how it affects other people and all those other different levels. It gets so convoluted that it's kind of like breathing. You can hold your breath, you can breathe fast, but we breathe. We don't have to think about it. And that's kind of how the way I think is just I don't need to think about it. I just think and it happens. And if I thought about it, I probably would confuse the hell out of myself.
That's the best logic I've ever heard.
Yeah. The logical thoughts of a lunatic, man.
Fantastic. All right, Mike. Well, I'd better wind this up, mate, before you wake yourself up
Yeah.
and sweat. You probably did. Do you remember your way home? You walked a few
Uh,
miles.
yeah. No, it's funny because on the Zoom thing, people trip out. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I can't." Ever since I've been little, and I pace around, and when I even have the phone, they're like, people jacked gas on it because I just like walk around on the phone and stuff, and I'll go out like sometimes outside, and then I'll start walking somewhere or whatever, and then I'm like, I'm an hour away and I had
How
to
do
be
I get
real
home?
upstairs. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh shit. Okay, we got GPS on this. Yeah. Get another call. Where you at? I'm like, I'm on the phone. But where? I don't know.
I've got my hand up. Look, I'm here.
Then they're like, well, how long have you been on the phone? I'm, well, it's been about 45 minutes. And they're like, okay, you're 45 minutes away.
So
Okay.
you're in this circumference here.
Yeah. Yeah. 10-minute drive. Yeah.
Yeah, no, all right, Mike. Well, Suicidal Tendencies are in Australia from November the 1st with Metallica. They've got a swag of their own sideshows going on. Mike's got a couple of Psycho Mike shows on the Gold Coast, brothers. So good on you. Looking forward to seeing you, mate. And I'll catch you at the Brisbane
Cool.
show.
Cool. Sounds great, man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.